So on this episode of What's Up Guy Garage, we're again not in the garage. Maybe I should call it something else. Not the garage, but I mean it's part of the garage. So today's project, kind of this right here. You can see this is our kitchen sink. There's a little bit of an issue. It's not like you know unless you've got some type of an alarm system under there that says, hey, it's leaking under here. A lot of times what happens is you find it too late, and that's what kind of happened in this case. They open up the cabinet. I mean, it looks horrendous in there. So where most of the issues are actually on this side right here. And if you can see, right now, you see kind of like how everything is, you know, not necessarily standing up straight. Things are leaning in. While it's nice to have the product leaning in, means it's not going to fall out. The reason why it's leaning in is because it's caving in. So you can see that line right there. That line is originally where this fake piece of pressed wood used to slide into. We're going to remedy that. Fairly easy. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give this a 3, maybe. And the only reason why I'm giving it a 3, so I'll show you, because we actually are going to have to deal with some pipes. So like I was saying, you can see our pipes right here actually come through this material, which is probably like either a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 inch pressed wood. I have a solution. I guess it's about a 3. That's what I'm going to guess. Because it is going to take some different tools that you might not have. One tool that I'm actually going to recommend that you get, and I'll show you what that tool is in a couple of minutes. First things first, take all the stuff out from under here so that we have a nice, clean, open, well, clean, I don't know, open surface at least. And just like YouTube magic, we're all cleaned out now. So now you can get a better look at what I was talking about as far as how this section has been compromised. You can see the distance that this is actually dropped because this got soaking wet. We've had a couple leaks in here that, you know, have been squared away, but it doesn't take away the damage that happens to this panel right here. So looking at that, I'll now show you what tool I'm talking about, and that's in the garage. This drawer right here is the tool that I'm actually talking about. You can obviously use like a jigsaw, or you could use a skill saw, or a sawzall. There's a sawzall under there to go ahead and do that. But this vibratory saw, which has become one of my most favorite saws, and you can see right there, it's Chicago Electric. This is from Harbor Freight Tools, and this one also has the adjustable speed. And if I remember right, this thing was like 20 or 30 bucks. And even the bits that I have installed on here are from Harbor Freight as well. Coming across those little pipe sections like I showed you, it's going to be a lot easier to go ahead and use this tool for what I've got to do. It's definitely a dog that loves to be part of the show.
Hi, Daisy. What you doing? Are you helping? Are you helping me? Good girl.
Because you will be working in an enclosed area, I'm definitely going to recommend hearing protection, and go ahead and get yourself some safety glasses. Eye and ear protection is definitely... It's a smart thing to do. And being kind of, I guess, like in an enclosed area such as this, that resonance or the sound that is going to be made by this saw right here can possibly damage your ears, and whatever you can do to prevent that is definitely a help. Some type of a dust mask definitely helps as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a line all the way through, paying attention to that brace that's right there, and then continuing all the way along right to that area right there, just to go ahead and break up the piece. This is where the GoPro is going to come in handy. To make my life easier, I'm going to take these doors off. This right and left door is just held on by a Phillips bit screw. You can see right there, Phillips bit. So I'm just going to take those doors off. There is going to be some type of a support that's obviously for the center of that section right there, using that little vibratory saw. I don't even know what the heck they call it. Variable speed, something kind of saw. Whatever it is, it's pretty cool. can see right here, so this area is actually going to be a lot easier to cut through. I'm going to do a division cut right here. Pieces are now independent of each other. You have to be right in the way, don't you? So there's that internal brace that I was telling you about. Go ahead and just lift these pieces out. Obviously we have these two pipes right here sticking through. And that's where this saw is going to come in handy. We can check and see underneath using a light. What's unique about this, having all these little camera systems, I'm able to actually look at my screen to see what we've got under here. This pipe right here, which this is the hot water supply, this is the cold water supply. How can you tell? Well, the dishwasher is fed with hot water. Now you can see we're cut to there. I use a pair of pliers just to go ahead and break off this small little piece right here. It's just pressed wood. The stuff does break up pretty easy. That way you can get it out of the way. And then this piece right here. Slide this up, down a little bit. Same thing, I'll break off a little corner here. Now we can go ahead and release this piece just by pretty much pulling on it like this. Now that's out of the way. So it would be nice. It would be nice if there was a way that we could go ahead and support this. I'll probably get a zip tie, and I'll just zip tie it just so as there's a support for this pipe right here. So right now we're just going to leave it hanging. It's no big deal. It was stapled from the back side, and then front side you can see was also stapled, but they pull out really easy. But we'll go ahead and clean all that up. We're just going to kind of pop that up. Again, this is just to support the pipe, just like that. No job is going to be the same. You may have similarities between jobs, but each one, after you open things up, such as like what we did here, you'll find that each job has different circumstances or hurdles that you need to either figure out or overcome. Now, something like this, what you want to do is start taking some measurements. I can see that based upon, how all the gaps look on the floor all the way around, that the cabinet itself is sitting level. I don't see any shims, so we're not going to have any issues to address concerning that. I want to go in there and start measuring things up. So we've got a width of about 46 and I'd say 5/8 by to this face frame from the back wall. 22 3/8. When we throw the tape on this wall, we know to this edge right here, it's 5.5. Kind of showing you something that is a part of measuring and the importance of like final numbers and whatever. That overlay, the stuff that we're actually using as our final product for the top, we know that's 1/8 of an inch, okay? So because of how I'm wanting this to be, I'm either wanting that to be almost perfectly flush with this edge here, or just the slightest amount down beyond this ledge, because what has happened over time, obviously just because of the way things are, as you're sliding things in and out of here, this leading edge here is taking a beating, and we can definitely see it on that trash side. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you that, so we have 1/8 of an inch, and we have 3/4 inch ply that we're actually going to be using as our base sheathing. We have to kind of figure out the math, and if we know that our final material overlay is 1/8 of an inch, and then we have 3/4 of an inch of plywood, we need to add those two numbers together and make sure that we cut that down from that 5.5. Because if we don't, what will happen is we'll end up with an issue where our final overlay piece will actually be too tall. You're working your way down in a sense. So you know what your finished height is intending to be, where you kind of want to be. And you basically kind of need to, I guess, mark a line, and so that everything, by the time you lay that last piece on, that, you're working at the right height. Does that make any sense? So we're going to also want to take care of a couple of things that are happening here. And one being these staples right here. And these staples are what was holding in the base, or at least the bottom shelf portion. And what I'm going to do is call the method called the pull through. I'm going to get a pair of needle nose pliers, grab one side of it, squeeze it, give it a twist until it pulls all the way through. See? And I'm going to do that to all the other ones. This support piece, this center support piece, is going to no longer be needed, so that we can go ahead and design or cut and put in the pieces of wood that we're going to need to replace that. Just going to take a hammer and lightly tap on this, because all these pieces are just held in with staples. So everything comes apart pretty easy. What's this right here? Oh my goodness. So what I've done is I've cut these pieces of wood into a few specific lengths. Just set these ones aside for now. You'll see what that's for. So this one's obviously going for one edge. Next piece will go for the center. So then this one goes right there. The center piece we're actually not going to nail in yet. And then depending upon how I'm configuring this, these pieces are pretty much going to go like this, and basically just box that in. And I'll explain to you why, or you'll see why I'm doing this kind of like little box configuration. When I put in our plywood base, you'll see why I did that box configuration right there on the pipes. We'll just put a little bead of glue, and this is, realistically, this is overkill for this. It's not needed, it's just, part of, what you do, I guess. I'm going to be using my rigid brad nailer just to put everything together. So let's see. I'm trying to do this like in the shot. And this is all scrap materials that I'm using. I kind of just want to line that up just a bit and just throw a nail in there. I'm using 1.25 inch nails. And you can see what that piece is going to do is sit like that. And the reason for that is because of those pipes. And like I said, I'll show you exactly why I'm doing it that way. It's just a way to be able to support the base, the plywood base, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Just kind of place this up against that section right there. And I just want to nail just on that bottom piece. I just want to basically put it into place just by throwing a couple little nails in there, just to kind of and it doesn't need to be super securely nailed. That's not what we're going for here. That's not how this is working. And then I'll just nail this to there, and then I can actually nail right down here through the floor. And that just keeps that kind of in place. And the center section, we're not going to be nailing yet. So now we'll just go ahead and nail that piece right there. Again, this is supporting weight this way. This isn't any kind of like major structure. You know, keeping it tacked in place. 1, 2, that's it. That's all you need. And this piece will just stay in there. So now what we need to do is measure for our piece of plywood. So depth-wise, to the very edge inside of the face frame, you kind of want to get the same number. And I'm taking 3 numbers by doing this. So I took 2 side numbers and I'm taking one of these middle numbers. And when I look at the tape, the average number that I'm seeing is 22 3/8. So the very center is actually 22 1/2. The very bottom of this cabinet just has a slight little outward bow to it. It's only 1/8 of an inch, which isn't a big deal. We can deal with that later. But we're looking at 22 3/8 on the left and right side, giving it just a little bit of squeak room for, you know, it's wood. So I guess you could call it expansion and contraction. Not that it's really going to matter in this, but that's just, at least that's my thought anyway. And then the width, again, you want to get, you know, several numbers. We'll go to the back here. We got 46 5/8 on this front edge, 46 5/8. So that's actually giving it, you know, just a squeak of room, that 46 5/8, and that's what the length of the material is going to be from left to right. And then obviously the 22 3/8 is the depth of our plywood that we'll be cutting. So those are our numbers. We're going to go down to the shop. We're going to cut that piece of plywood, and let's just go. So I'm just going to set our saw at 22 3/8 because that's the rip that we're doing. What I'm going to do is just take my tape measure and measure off the fence to make sure that we're there. I think I'm glasses. I think I need some glasses or something. So right there we're at 22 3/8. And that's actually on the little carbide tip. This saw does need a new blade, but it'll cut through. I want to split this piece into 2 pieces to be able to actually get it inside the cabinet. And that's just taking the 46 and dividing it by 2. I want to slide this back over, and I want to rip this panel at, I'm just going to leave it at 23 1/4. I know that that's not, you know, the exact, you know, middle, but it really doesn't matter. It'll still be evenly spaced on the actual saw itself. What we want to do is transfer some numbers. These are going to be loose numbers. We're going to be getting the centers of these 2 pipes right here. So we're going from this right side, and we're going to go for the centers of the cold supply and the hot supply. Then we're going to take numbers from the back and do the same exact thing. And we'll mark it. Well, we won't have to mark it whether it's hot and cold, but then we'll mark it on our piece of plywood, which is actually sitting right out in front of these cabinets right now. So when you're talking about a loose number, keep in mind, we are going to have a slight gap on this side here. And that's just for, you know, things moving. So I'm going to say we're going to go with a 4 and a 5 5/8. Coming off of that back wall, let's see, we're about 4.5 inches. So just do kind of like a loose number. Put a little scribe line, 4.5. That way you know where those numbers are. So we're going to put a mark at 4. Then we're going to put a mark at 5 5/8. So now we know these are our two pipes. Our cold supply and our hot supply. Again, doesn't matter which is which. Then off of that back wall, again, maybe a loose number. We're looking at about 4.5. So we're going to come off of there, put a mark at 4.5, mark at 4.5. Now, what we know when we're looking at this, we'll know that these two marks right here, these crosshair marks that I just made, when we go to drill those out with a drill bit or a hole saw, you know, whatever we've got. But when we go to drill those holes out, we're going to make sure that that hole is actually going to be larger than the 1/2 inch, because that's what the pipes are. The pipes are 1/2 inch tubing. So we want to make sure that we bump that number up, and then those two little marks right there, that's our center point of where the actual drill point is going to be going through, and then the hole saw, or however we do this, whether if we use a wood chisel bit or if we use a hole saw. I may use a hole saw. Now we'll just go ahead and go into the garage and cut those. Lower this blade down so we can use this as a work table for now. I'm not going to need power going to this anymore, so unplug it so that we're safe. So these are our marks. I'm actually going to place it over this little section right here so that when I drill down and in, I'm not going to, you know, destroy anything. So it wasn't exactly the piece that I was looking for. Obviously I can't find my other one, so what you just want to make sure of is that you're over the material, or that your material's over a section where you can actually bore through. Clamp that piece to the work table for now. Now, the reason why we're doing that is because we're going to be using that vibrating saw. Now, make sure you wear your safety glasses and your ear protection, especially when using this piece. Now, when we measured to that piece, and when we get up there, I'll show you what it is. So because this is our back wall section, and this is obviously our right side, we're going to measure over, put a mark at 7 1/4, and then we're going to divide right down that line like that. And what I'll do, just to give myself a line to follow, take my square, give myself a nice line, just like that. And same thing on this side. And I want to make sure that I follow that line right there. This is the one that's kind of, you know, more imperative as far as being straight. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Get this a little closer so you see what's going on here. So I'm basically just going to trace this line with this saw. And that's why I like that, because look at how small or thin the line actually is once it's done cutting. And it's just so much easier to be able to put a piece like this together when you do that. Now when fitting that piece in, and now the reason why we didn't put this piece and nail this in yet is for this reason right here. Saying? See how that works? Now our other half of the piece will go in on that side. And that's why we did it that way. Now that seam is almost invisible. That one we can tighten up just by bringing that edge piece further that way, and now we've got our base in. So now that we test fit our pieces, what we did is we took out that piece right there so that we can leave that center section revealed, and we're going to tack nail or use our brad nailer. We're going to brad nail that edge right there into our center support. And again, this is floating. Just like that. Now we can take our other piece, put it back in. Tighten up our gap a little bit. Tack nail our back piece first. Right back here. Now we know that those pieces are joined on that back section, and then we can go ahead and tighten up our gap right here. Now what we can do is we can actually centerize our base in between the left and right side. And that I'm just going to use a butter knife and just wedge it in, slide it over enough. A little bit of a gap. And then what we can do is now concentrate on this piece right here. This edge, it's kind of a little tight. Can't even see it here. Now I can just go ahead and tack our edge along this line right here and our edge along that right there. I'll just do a back, middle, and front. I already got the back done, so I can do middle and front. Now that's what the base floor will look like, which is going to allow us that edge lip room that I was talking about right there when installing this stuff right here. So I'll take one out and I'll slide it up right against so you can see what I'm talking about. See that? Look at that edge reveal right there. I don't know if you can see that. See So you can see as I do this, it brings it straight in along this edge. And I verified that by taking one of these planks. Because these are engineered, these are absolutely straight. And what I do is I touch it at this corner here, and then when you bring that in, then you can see how straight it is. So what I'll do is I know that that's straight by hitting that center section. I'm going to take my nail gun, my brad nailer. One of the most important things when you're doing this, because you're dealing with a face frame and you're going to be nailing through this piece of wood, we're working with 1 1/4" brad nails. So I'm fairly confident we're not going to have an issue as far as blowing through the face of this, but you also don't want to put your hand there when you're nailing, just in case, what if it just decides to hook, which that has happened. Now we're solid. Now I've actually never cut this stuff before. It's just like a vinyl plank, so how hard can it be? So make sure you give yourself enough room. I'm going to use my square up my edge, and I'm going to line it up, the edge of the square, with that, because I want this section of the tab to be gone. And just give it a slice. Obviously being careful that you're not, coming across and hitting the countertop. So let's see what happens. So all you have to do is just basically score it, and it snaps right off nice and clean. So I want to keep it tight up against this face frame right here, and then coming off of that edge right there. Then what you want to do is you want to measure with the tape. And I want to give it, the slightest amount of wiggle room. So we're looking at 11 3/8. Measure out 11 3/8. So maybe I can do it inside here. I want to rack it though. Alright, well anyways, just take my word for it. I'm going to measure it 11 3/8. I'm going to put a mark. Get my knife there. Take my square it up, and just give it a slice. And let's see, does it break? Yes, it does. I'm going to trim off just a touch, which isn't a big deal. Now, I should be able to just line that piece up with that one. Then you can take that piece and start your next section with it. And just measure this piece. It's at 22. Make sure your surface is clean. Measure out 22. Break it. It's like you just got to kind of clean up that edge right there a little bit. And line that piece up. Make sure that there's no bumps underneath. Butt it up against. Line it up. That's it. Not too bad. I like it. So that's what it looks like. And that next piece, we'll start that row right there, and that's actually where the pipes are going to be. So we're going to go ahead and draw the pipes right inside of this piece right here. And these are movable, so we'll go with, we can go with 6 for both of them. So these planks are actually 6, so it's going to be right on the seam, so that works out all right. And we're going to come off of our edge. This is where it's more critical. So 4 and 2 and 5 and 6. 4 and 2, that's a quarter. 5 and 6, that's 3/4. So I did is I transferred those measurements onto this and just used the blade to basically use the blade just to kind of round it out and cut it through. And from what I'm seeing, it actually looks like it's going to fit nice. So just make sure that you're butting your piece up against the edge. Stick it down, and you're good. And now you just basically mimic that same thing right there. It's not bad for what it is. And then we'll measure on this side, get this piece. Again, leaving the slightest amount of a gap. So we're at 32 5/8. Laying our corner there. Make sure that we bring it in. Not too bad. I like it. Definitely better than what was here, that's for sure. And then won't bore you with the rest. We'll just go ahead and finish what we got going on here. Looks like we got just basically one more panel to go ahead and fit in. And then I'll show you what the final result is.
And there it is. The dynasty continues.
So here's what we're looking at for a final product. I'll take this trash barrel out. We've actually swapped directions. Used to have the trash over there. Now we have all the chemicals and stuff over there. And now the trash is on this side because it definitely slides in better. And what my wife kind of wants me to do now is design one of those pull-out trays. And the pull-out tray is going to be custom designed because of the space that I've got. The trash barrel will be on this side. The custom tray will actually pull out the entire length. And there'll be, obviously this section will also pull out, and you can have, you know, material, or you can have chemicals and stuff that kind of pull out on that same side there. On the sides here, what I did was on those tabs, the initial first piece of tab that is actually this section right here. So that piece is about 1 inch long. What I did is I ripped the entire piece all the way across from one of my scrap materials. I think it was like a 27-inch piece, and we already knew that this was about, you know, 24 inches in depth, so it worked out absolutely perfect. Split that piece in half, so I ended up with little 1/2-inch pieces that have the glue on them already, and just affixed tight up against that edge, because this was damaged on here, that side was damaged as well, so it had a little bit of a bow to it. So now that that was bowed out, every time you cut a straight piece, because it's engineered, when you would fit it up against that edge, it would leave a little gap, and I noticed that actually in one of the videos, that it's kind of perfectly kind of shows that. But that's what we ended up doing, or that's what I ended up doing, was just ripping one of those inch pieces in half, so it's a 1/2 inch, and it goes all the way on both sides. And the most important thing is my wife is absolutely happy now, and obviously you saw that clip. Something happened yesterday. Patriots won Super Bowl 53. Congratulations to them. Proud of them. They worked hard this year like they do every year, and that's all I've got to say about that. And we also kind of dressed up this little section right here, and that was with a, I think it's called like a paint pen or some kind of something like that. I don't know, where is that? That paint pen that I'm talking about That's this right here. Wood finish pen. And all I did was basically just color over the wear spots and it blended in really nice. I mean, you saw what that looked like before. It looks really nice now. That's it. So that was just a very easy, so in my opinion, that was just a very easy job to do. The hardest part probably is if you don't have some of the tools that you need. Obviously, tools that I had to use, table saw, but you can use a circular saw. You can use whatever you got. You can use a jigsaw. You don't have to have those types of tools to cut wood. I mean, you can even have, wherever you get the wood from, have them cut the piece of plywood down to the size that you need. You can always ask questions. I know they sell sheets of plywood. I think they're 24 by 48. That would work perfect for this job because, 9 times out of 10, those cabinets aren't going to be 24 inches in depth. But, yeah, you know what I mean? I gave it a 3. I have a hard time, I guess, trying to figure out how to rate things. Sometimes I'm asked, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate that? And it's hard to rate it because for me, it's like a 0 or a 1. But trying to rate it for someone else, I'm not very good at doing that. Maybe I'd guess for someone that, I guess, had some tools that knew how to cut things and measure, maybe this job's like a 4 or something like that. Like I called it a 3 before. Maybe it's a 4. Just because of, some of the tools. And that oscillating vibratory saw that I was telling you to get, definitely get one of those. They're great. They have so many different uses and attachments. You can use it for cutting grout. You can use it for cutting any kind of wood, sanding. Just all the attachments that they have for those new style tools. It's just great. Just makes work so much easier. So thanks for watching this episode of What's Up Guy Garage. Not in the garage again, but had to go to the garage to get some of the tools. So thanks for watching. If you like my stuff, please subscribe to the channel, share it, thumbs up, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter to me. And hopefully this will help somebody. If it doesn't, I don't know what to tell you. If it does, great. Very happy for that. So enjoy. Tripod. So I'm actually gonna so we'll just take that route. How do I explain this?